Life is a fight. And as always, I am joined by my co-host, Jeffrey Wilson, the genius of the operation.
I'll take that. That's what's
And
up.
today, Jeffrey, we've got a very special guest. Now, look, not necessarily was he a sports star, although he has a sports background, but he's a bit different and a higher level star altogether.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you're talking 10 years in the SEALs, 4 years private military contracting. I mean, what he's doing, we're obviously going to get into it, what he's doing to help veterans in such a unique way that doesn't have anything to do with pharmaceuticals. I am very anxious to have the conversation with this gentleman.
Yeah, and there's something that you didn't mention I'll pull out a little bit later in the interview that'll surprise you a little bit about his combatives background that I found really, really cool.
Let's do it.
Now, listen, as you mentioned, former Navy SEAL, the elite, the tip of the spear kind of guy. He has come up with, he's the CEO and founder of Heroes and Horses, and their mission statement is, Heroes and Horses exist to redefine the relationship between challenge and purpose by reintegrating combat veterans through an innovative, comprehensive, and effective process that uses the wilderness, the horse-human connection, and a proven leadership model. And so our guest today, CEO of Heroes and Horses, is none other than Micah Fink. Micah, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, bud. Happy to be here.
Now, when I first heard about this, and I'm trying to remember who introduced us. Do you remember who introduced us by phone?
Yeah, it was Mike Wolf introduced us.
That's
actually.
right, Mike Wolf, my good buddy. I found it very interesting, and the program that you guys are doing is really changing the model for the way these veterans with PTSD are being treated, I think, because you've been so successful, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a systemic problem, and ultimately it's not combat. It's the process that they encounter when they come home from war. That's really the problem. It's not combat, and I'll talk more about that later on. But ultimately, it's a reintegration program, and it's a direct reflection of the own experiences that I've had in my life.
And tell us, you were obviously, I'm sure, hearing when you're still in the Navy, you're hearing about a lot of veterans committing suicide. It's got to be affecting you guys going, man, what is going on? The transition back to civilian life has got to be hell, this and that. You made a decision to not make that transition like everybody else. You took a trip, and tell us about that trip that you took.
Yeah, I mean, I got home from combat, and the first person you see is a 25-year-old grad student that wants to prescribe you a series of medications after about 45 minutes and putting you in some soft talk therapy. And I got diagnosed as a combat-related bipolar disorder, and being a totally awesome guy. That was my self-diagnosis. But yeah, I mean, it really left a mark on me, and I got up and I was like, I think you have PTSD. I got in an argument with the psychologist, and we got, back and forth. I left, I never returned. And that left a real mark on me, and ultimately what I did was I ended up going to the Amazon and soloed 500 or 600 miles in a canoe with a local Indian that I ended up contracting, and it turned out to be one of the worst experiences of my entire life. And it was a major turning point, and it was the key factor that ultimately led me to where I am today.
Yeah,
If I may ask, what was it that was so? I thought that was like a good cleansing thing for you. What was it down there that made it so horrible?
Have you ever read Theodore Roosevelt's book about being in the Amazon?
I have read that book extensively.
I've heard about it.
The River of Doubt.
River of Doubt. Everybody died. It's a very vicious place. Like, everything bites you, everything stings you. When I talk about remote, I mean, I've ridden horses from New Mexico to Arizona, wild Mustangs. I've packed all over the country and most of the wildernesses that we have in the lower 48 states. I've never experienced such just everything is dangerous. Everything makes you, bites you and itches, and you're sick, and you're living on piranhas, and you're out there. And I couldn't speak the language, so I had nobody to talk to. I literally would hold on to my GPS and stare at it like it was this outside tether to the world. Like, here I am. I got this guy that's 2'2" with a bone through his nose, and he's like my protector. And I was just like, he has no idea who I had hair down to my shoulders, crazy wild man beard, I'm covered in tattoos. And this dude's walking in front of me with a machete to keep me safe from the jaguars. And I was like, man, I have made a really bad decision right now, but I don't even know how to say go home.
Wow.
So did you contract malaria like they did in River of Doubt?
Nah, I mean, but you spend as much time traveling foreign countries as a SEAL, malaria just kind of comes and goes. You just, more like a hangover.
A little Japanese encephalitis, nothing. It's no big deal.
Yeah, a couple bumps here or there, whatever. But no, I got really sick actually out there, and it was I don't know what it was. Probably we're eating these rats, these cane rats. They call them jacarees, and I don't think we cooked it good enough one night. But I was sick for like a week. I thought I was going to die out there, and the guy kept trying to give me this mixture of these plants. I was like, I thought maybe it was like the ayahuasca or something. I wasn't really sure, so I didn't take it, and ended up stuffing it out and making it home. And the weird thing is, I came home. I wasn't talking about war anymore. I was talking about this experience in the Amazon. It was like it had become this new normal for me. And at the time, I was shortly after that. That's when I spent 4 years as a private contractor for the agency, and our unit was depicted in the movie 13 Hours in Benghazi, and I did another 9 deployments for them around the world, and before I fully retired, and then also exited out of the Navy. That's really when those experiences started coming together. I started realizing that it's actually struggle that gives things in life value. So by reducing the struggle, you actually polarize the bad experience and you make it worse. And that's what I mean, that the process that guys encounter when they come home is wrong. It's wrong because you go from super high pressure to no pressure. That change in the middle, I know it can kill you. I know many, many, many guys who have taken their own lives, and to me, it's not combat that's doing it. It's what they encounter when they come home.
And now you have a unique viewpoint, and I think it's the right viewpoint after hearing you talk to me about it on the phone, about PTSD, about, obviously, look, the way you put it, I look at what I've been through life as nothing close to what you've been through in all the deployments, the things that you've seen. Obviously, some very hardcore, hairy situations that you've been through. But you have a unique way of looking at PTSD, whether you are a veteran or a civilian.
Well, I think like PTSD has become a identity. I think that everybody has PTSD. Listen, how come? Here's a good instance. I had a guy come through the program who was in Haiti putting people in body bags during the hurricane, which was obviously a terrible thing. And then he's 100% disabled, PTSD, getting all the benefits and all those things. And then you've got like youth groups from the First Baptist Church in Georgia going over there, 13, 15-year-old kids over there doing the same job and then just going back. To me, like, there's a fundamental disconnect. If you let life happen to you, you are always the victim. And if you let life happen for you, then you always have a choice. And it's in our choices that's freedom from everything. I fundamentally know that you have the ability to think greater than you feel. If you can think bad about something, inversely, you can think good about something. But what happens is we relinquish those choices to a system. And we're always looking for someone to tell us what to do, how to think, 12 steps to this, the 10-day detox, to this steps to happiness, come over here and you turn into a gold nugget, whatever is out there. And it's insanity because there's no original thought.
Yeah.
Everything that you need in this life, you're fundamentally born with. It's inscribed upon your DNA, and that's why you're here. And when that purpose runs out, so do you. Now, whether you find it or not, that's up to the choices we make. So, to me, we've really created a welfare entitlement society about veterans. Like, I work with the worst of the worst. Guys that have been shooting meth, guys that have been in and out of jail, the worst of the worst. And I like the worst of the worst because they become the best of the best. And what do? Nothing. I put them in a situation and circumstance that is so hard and so difficult and so long that the only direction they have to look at a certain point is within. All the labels come off, all the lies, all the diagnosis, all these crazy things that everybody has. And then when they're done, what they've learned, well, has their problems go away? No, they're still there. Same problems. Car payments, legal problems, all these things are still there. But their approach has fundamentally changed as they attack from the inside out, not the outside in.
Yeah, great point, great point. Now, at what point after your trip to the Amazon and you get back, at what point did it jump into your mind that having these veterans come to Montana to jump into this program was really the way of getting this done, of helping these men?
Yeah, so I got out of the teams, and then I ended up, I stayed in the reserves, so I was still doing stuff with them, and then I started contracting. So I didn't start doing that until I moved out to Montana in 2012. And, I ended up meeting some cowboys and stuff, and with horses. I actually met them in the backcountry. And the crazy thing is, I started going to these guys' ranches and riding, and at the time, they were exactly the type of person I was. I was very brutal, you wanted to fight me, I will fight you. And I don't mean like I will fight anything. I just was like, you wanted to be strong, I would be stronger. I had such a mentality about me that was very caustic, and these guys were very brutal on the horses. I learned all kinds of crazy stuff, and obviously, hopefully, there's no horse lovers out here because they're like, oh my god. But like the old way was force, fear, and repetition. Force, fear, repetition, and you essentially created slaves out of these animals. There's a better way, which is letting it be their own free choice, and not to get into how you break horses, but these guys really put me in a situation where I was always fighting with these animals. I was being bucked off, kicked, dragged. I've seen horses go off cliffs and die in the backcountry. And then, some guys came along and were like, hey, there's a better way. And when that changed and my perspective changed, that's when my life began to change, because I realized I was the cause of all my own problems. It wasn't war. There was not a little guy with strings attached to my head making me do things. It was all my own choices, and I had to take ownership of those choices, and that's when I began to learn and grow. And those horses, they became a reflection of who I was, and that wasn't a good person. That was an angry person. That was a mean person. I was a person that made a lot of excuses about all kinds of things. And that's when I realized that, why I had gone to the Amazon, why I ran the Ironman, why I took on all these challenges, because ultimately what I was just looking for in the end was me.
Well, and you can apply that just to kind of anything in life, man. I mean, it's the choice to kind of get out of your own way and, to lack of a better term, sort of stop playing the victim. And not to go all Anthony Robbins, but it's your moment of decision where your destiny is formed. And, I mean, it's really powerful, man, because so many people define themselves by their tale of woe, whatever it is. And it's so much larger than that.
That's the thing I want to know also is, how long will you sit at a table with somebody who's complaining, Micah?
About 45 seconds. I can't take it, because what I'll do is I'll start just picking them apart, kind of like a Jordan Peterson picks apart a stupid news anchor, right? You just start to see and everything. It's like, well, what's going on? Yeah, you're a vet. Yeah, I'm a vet. Cool, man. It's like, yeah, VA they're really fucking me over. I'm like, oh, sorry. The VA's really screwing me over. And I'm like, oh, really? What? Yeah, they're giving me all these pills. They're making me take them. I'm like, they're holding you down and making you take them? He's like, well, no, but, they're making you do it. I'm like, well, how are they making you do it?
Right.
Well, and then we start going down this road, right? It's always, there's no ownership in anybody's choices at all.
Right.
And I ultimately realized that the change, you can't change people. People change through pressure and time, period. And it's struggle that gives everything in life value. What kills you more, Lipitor and donuts or 4 a.m. and running shoes?
Amen.
Right.
I did like a TEDx last year, and it was really funny because my title is an anti-motivational speaker. And of course, all these people are I come rolling up with slick back hair covered in tattoos like a cowboy. They're they're talking about growing vegetables and stuff. And I walked in there, and they took a look at me. I was like, so what do you mean by that? I said, that's all fake. Because when the motivator leaves, so does the motivation. It's over. You never learned how to take control of the greatest gift we have in this life. To me, that's purpose. And it's purpose that allows people to overcome their external circumstances. And the only way you can find it is going through that forging process, which really peels you down to nothing. It breaks you down until you finally look at who you are, and that's when growth really begins in an individual. So I can't stand it. I mean, I screen through hundreds of applications every year, and the narrative, if I could string all the applications together, hundreds of guys every year, it would all be the same. It's all the same. It is all the same exact story, the same exact narrative that every single guy is telling. It's the same.
Many of them have been programmed, if not all, by VA programs, by doctors telling them what's wrong with them and everything else, and so they come to believe what they're told, that narrative, correct?
Absolutely. Listen, the thing is, you got to have your own mind. You roll into these people, I sit down, it's there's a girl sitting there, she's like, or a guy or whoever. You walk in there, you sit down, they're like, they got your little record, and they're like, oh, okay, trouble sleeping? You're like, yeah. Oh, did you say yes? You're like, I guess, sometimes, oh, okay. You ever get angry? You're like, well, guy cut me, road rage. You're like, well, no, I was going to the Walmart park. I don't know. And they're like, oh, okay, you have PTSD. You're like, oh, geez. And that's really when the problems begin. You start getting these diagnoses. I had a guy show up who was 25 years old. I was on 14 medications.
Jeez.
I had a guy that had his fight or flight nerve blocked. Like you would block somebody for, you're doing an ACL repair, they do a nerve block on you.
Right.
They block the fight or flight. They're doing experimentation with that. And when that wears off, we had stampeding horses running towards this guy, and I was like, get out of the way. And he just stood there like a zombie.
Wow.
And how come World War II veterans who experienced the most horrific atrocities, 49% of them came home and started businesses that are still operating today? Well, what programs were there for them? Zero. Goose egg. None.
Right.
Great point.
So what's there today? 21% of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans are attempting to get jobs or go to school. You turn on the media, what has it got? The guy is in the grocery store, and he drops a can of soup, and he starts crying and remembers the tank. Most guys have never even really seen any combat. And it's a problem, and it's become an entitlement society, and I'm pretty much the only guy out here that I know that's really saying what it is. And if anybody's got a problem, I'll give you my address.
Do you get any kind of resistance from other, even older veterans or even just veterans in general on your particular approach?
No, because this is the thing. It works.
Right. You can't argue with success, right?
No, I promise you that I can put enough pressure on you that you will learn about yourself. I promise you. I can do it. I could take somebody that's you stick them on Mount Everest and they're fighting for their life, all of a sudden their whole perspective changed. These guys are literally fighting for their lives, but they're fighting to climb out of the tar pit that was created, the narrative pit that was created for them by everybody else. And to me, I would say 80% of the guys that show up in my program are on more than 3 medications.
And so when they arrive, do they get off of the medications then after they arrive? Are they told they have to do that, or is it a gradual weaning, or because you have them eat organic foods, meat and vegetables, you clean up their systems, a lot of hard work, a lot of working with horses, is that the process?
Yeah, so ultimately everybody knows my stance on it, but a lot of guys do start weaning off the meds before they show up. Because there's, we help them get in shape if they need to. They got to read 2 books before they arrive. We have a communication strategy, and then, there's a whole food eating when they get here. And then, it's 40 days, no days off. Every day starts at 4 a.m. with, if we're back at base camp, then they're living in wall tents. Then it's 4 a.m. The days begin. They got PT in the morning, and then breakfast, and then work ends at 10 o'clock at night when we finish the leadership program, rain or shine. And guys start to realize that they don't have, there's no trouble sleeping because they've never worked so hard in their entire life.
Right.
And especially guys that didn't grow up with horses or ranch work or anything like that. They're the guys from New York City and stuff. They're like, yo, this is treacherous, son. We encourage that in a sense, but that has to be their own free choice, because once again, I'm not telling them how to think or what normal looks like or what to do. I'm saying that you have the answers, and by going through this process, you'll find what your authentic answers are. And they're within. That's it. Because if I tell them, follow me and do this and do that, then I'm the next, 12 steps to freedom guy. I'm the next. I don't do that. It's about original thought, and everyone's original thought is different.
Now, I watched, and I recommend for everybody out there to go to YouTube and watch 500 Miles, Heroes and Horses 500 Miles, because I've watched it 4 or 5 times already. It is captivating to watch these guys and watch you guys train these horses, work with them, and then pack them all up and ride 500 miles through the mountains. It's an impressive documentary.
Yeah, so that was the story. You know, I came up with that. We rode Wild Mustang. It was actually 760 miles we ended up riding.
Goodness.
And it's a story of the unpurposed horse and the unpurposed human being. So you got the Wild Mustang, which is identical just like the Veteran. $50-60 million a year being blown on these horses. They're in captivity. You know, they got all these different programs. Nothing's really working. It's just mismanagement. And it's the same exact thing with these veterans. They're both lacking one thing. Well, before you could see the beauty and ride these horses and experience a relationship with them, you have to overcome the fear, and you have to overcome the violence and all those things. But then those animals, they become your closest friend. And what would they go through? They essentially went through the Heroes and Horses program as horses. And It doesn't matter if you're a horse or you're a human. If people change through pressure and time, either, you know, like an IED blast changes you from a solid to a gas at 30,000 feet per second, or a drop of water on a stone over 1,000 years. It's the same thing. People change through pressure and time. And that's what this medium is. It's pressure in time. It's the same way our bodies change. We destroy them, we feed them, they grow back stronger. We destroy them, we feed them, they grow back stronger. When you hit 40, they start to break down.
That's the good old adage from Red from Shawshank Redemption, man. Pressure in time.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, hey, well, listen. Honestly, like, I've never heard that, but it's so simple to me because people change through pressure. Everything changes through pressure and time. So, like, you know, I believe from dust we came, from dust we'll return, and those principles apply to us as human beings.
And now let's go. I want to go back to the way that you were taught to train horses. After you said being tough, being hard on them, the fear that's instilled in them, everything else. And it never dawned on me that yes, we are a predator, and yes, horses are a pack animal. They are a prey animal, and if you act aggressive around them, they're terrified. And so you learned a whole new way. Can you explain that process?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like horses, their eyes are on the side of their heads. Well, our eyes are in the front of our heads, so obviously we're predators. All predators' eyes are in the front of their heads. Horses are on the side of their heads. They see independently. So, like, if they see something on the left, the right side does not know. So, we have horses that we call cowboy broke that I get. You'll get on them on the left side, and everything's all good. You jump off the right side, and they about kill you because they've never seen it before. And so, but that's because their heads are down and they're looking different directions for predators. And then they're a flight animal. They have the highest VO2 max of any land animal on Earth. The faster that's why their noses are flared. So they're designed to do one thing and one thing only: run away from predators as fast as possible. 35, 40 miles an hour. And I've been on some of those death rides through fences, like this. And anyway, how you get the horse to get to a place where you can put a saddle on him and you can have this unity between essentially lion and lamb is by putting them in tough situations and then releasing the pressure for them at the right time. So horses learn through not the application of pressure, the old cowboy way, but actually from the release of it. So I create a bad situation for the horse in the simplest terms. And then I give him a place where I need him to make a decision. When he makes the right decision, I immediately back the pressure off. And the horse thinks it's his own idea. So therefore, it's his own free choice, and the idea sticks with the animal because he thinks he thought it up. It's the same way we train these veterans. We put them in these situations, in these circumstances that are dangerous. There is a risk component. It is extremely hard. It is very revealing about who you are as a person. But we give them the opportunity to make a choice, and it's their own free choice. We don't tell them what that choice is, but we give them the opportunity. When they do, then the pressure comes off. And so people and horses train in the same way, through pressure and release.
That's super. Is it this whole process? I mean, I've seen this kind of played out recently. Prisoners working with animals and dogs and just different kind of animals. Is this something that's just kind of this method? Is this just kind of specific? I guess your application is just more specific to PTSD. But can people with like addiction problems do something like this, or just other issues?
Yeah, I mean, listen, a horse is going to mirror as a prey animal. I could talk about the biology of a horse forever on here. Like, they're just incredible creatures. But like, if you have a serious anger problem or anxiety or nervousness, whatever, the horse immediately begins. Remember, they're a prey animal, so they react off sensations from predators. So as you begin to approach that animal, he begins to mirror your behavior. And so you could have the calmest horse, and a guy could, I had a guy that came through, he was a ranger, and he walked over, we really matched the horse personality to the human. We're very, very, very particular about that. And this guy walks over to this horse, and he's just the angriest guy. And he has like a, carrot or something. He's walking towards the horse. And he looks like he's going to like stab it in the face. And he's walking, he's like, "Hey, Sally." And the horse starts freaking out and ripping at the halter, and like he runs creepy. Back or whatever. And I was like, "Bro, look at your body right now." His shoulders were up. He had the carrot in his hand, and he's just coming at this horse. He was so self-aware. And so finally, when he began to learn about himself, that's when that bond really happened between, the horse and the human, because it's a partnership. It's a relationship. So there's a organization out there in Wyoming that takes prisoners. And I know the old cowboy that runs it. And for 25 years, they worked with wild Mustangs. This is long before there was any, fanfare about Mustangs. And he would take the most dangerous criminals and line them up in a huge arena and turn all the wild horses just loose in there, and they had to stand there.
Wow.
Now, obviously, they're not going to attack you. They're a prey animal. If they can run away, they want to run away. They'll only fight if you have them tied and restricted. So they're running around. These guys are standing there. They're totally terrified, hardcore calm. And he said in 25 years, the horses would stop, and they would always peg their ears when they point towards danger. They'd pin their ears forward at the one or two most dangerous criminals in there, murder, rape, whatever. And he would always write their names down in a little book and go back and look at their record. And the horses would always identify the most violent man there.
Wow.
Yeah. That's not like, that's real. And, they're designed to stay alive just like we are. They're always on the lookout for danger. And so they can recognize something that you may not even recognize about yourself. And that's what's really unique about the horse-human relationship.
It's spot on, because I spent summers on my grandma's farm down in southern Iowa, and they had horses down there. And I remember I was probably 4 or 5 years old, maybe at the time, and I got bit by a horse. I got bucked off onto a barbed wire fence by a horse. And then when I was an adult, my mom had Arabians, and the Arabians, I was afraid of horses, and they knew it. They could register it right away. I got on one of her Arabians to ride it. The horse took off. My mom didn't tell me that they worked off body signals by squeezing your legs together. That means go faster. I'm pulling back on the reins. The horse isn't slowing down. I had to jump up on the saddle with my feet and dive off of the horse, and my mom's just laughing at me the entire time. But that tells you my experience with horses.
That's true. Micah, is there any way you could turn the bright up on your sun setting behind you and we could barely see you? But that's totally. I remember Bill Burr in his comedy special. He had a pit bull that he had to give away, and like Bill would get all amped up watching sports and stuff, and he'd look at his dog and like, "Settle down, dog." But you wonder why your dog has this Game 6 look on their face, because they're just feeding off your energy. So that's absolutely true. It's interesting how that obviously applies to quite a few animals, horses included.
Well, packing is a really particular old-fashioned art. And when I talk about it being hard, listen, I'm a hard dude, and this is hard. When you've got, the guys will ride, 400 plus miles in this program, having no horse experience. And packing is an art form of taking these saddles, whether it's a Decker saddle, which is a type of saddle which was designed by the U.S. military, or a sawbuck saddle, putting all your gear and equipment like Lewis and Clark, tying it down with a series of knots, and then stringing the animals together, tying them together, we call it pigging together. Well, you're going up 10, 11,000 feet, switchbacks, you got animals that are tied together, and all those animals have personalities. Some don't get along. Hambone doesn't like Parrot, and Parrot doesn't like Tucock. Tucock doesn't like Grumpy, whatever. And, they get in fights and things happen, and bears run out. Animals run out. Horses go off cliffs. They run away. And let me tell you something. When you have horses on a switchback and it's hundreds of feet down, and one thing the movie doesn't depict was we had a really bad wreck in there. We had 4 horses go off cliff. Wow. They lived, but one fell almost 200 feet down and landed upside down and lived.
Wow.
landed upside down. We had to cut him out with a handsaw. It was just crazy. And so, when you're out there, there is no rescue. There is no calling in. It's totally, you're relying on those animals. And I think it really reduces everything away so it becomes you're really in a primordial state. It's about food and taking care of the animals and moving to the next location.
When you had that one vet, I forget his name off the top of my head, a little bit older, and you guys didn't, I don't think, showed it on the film, but
no, it was on there with the cactus. They got buried.
He didn't show the actual crash, but yeah, he got concussed. It was cactus all in him, cactus in the horses, and he insisted to keep going.
Let me tell you something. That day, oh my God, so I was behind him riding this horse we call Chunk, and he was one of the Mustangs, and a mountain biker. We were coming through the Superstition, I think, National Forest into the wilderness. So in the wilderness, you can't take a mountain bike, nothing mechanized, nothing with a motor, nothing with wheels. You can only walk or have a horse in the wilderness. But in the National Forest, in some areas, you can ride mountain bikes or dirt bikes or whatever. And we're coming around this switchback, and it's just the most horrible place, cactuses, cholla cactus everywhere. I mean, it was I don't know how to describe it without saying a bad word, but it was really, really bad. And I just see this mountain biker come down, and he had the map in his hand because we were talking because we were going to ride all through the night, which happens, often on those kind of trips. Stuff happens. So we realized we're going to be there for an all-nighter, and the mountain biker collided into him. His horse reared back, and the horse has 40 pounds of bone in his head. Hit him in the face, broke his nose, his occipital, his orbitals, busted his jaw, knocked him unconscious, and he landed face down in a cactus.
Ooh.
And, I mean, he was unconscious in a cactus, and a huge cactus. And my horse was just bucking like crazy, and I just let go of all the other horses, and they ran off into the desert and got caught up in the cactuses. And I got off the horse, I hobbled my horse, and I was like, I'm not coming off this guy. I get over to him, and I roll him over, and his face is just blood. He's like, And it was the next day, he got med-flighted out of there. Got to get a medevac. The next day, he rode with us. And there's a shot in that movie where we're riding down the railroad tracks, and that was that day. And it was just showed his level of commitment because we wanted to tell this story that, look at, there's a way that you can change, but change equals commitment. And that's why most people don't change, because they don't have commitment tied in with change. They want change, but they don't want commitment. And it was a really, really special thing. I think ultimately social media and all these, digital mediums, they harm us. They harm us from going out and doing the real thing.
Yeah.
Amen, brother.
They harm us from going to the Amazon. They harm us from saying, what, I want to be a UFC fighter. I want to do that. They harm us from that because we get the same feeling by watching it, and I actually think it contributes to the de-evolution of mankind. And people are always like, man, I want your life. I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. I want my life, period. But yeah, I mean, it's an incredible story, and to me, it's reached millions of people, and veterans from around the country have been so impacted by that because I think there is a big group of guys that, they want to change. They want to move on in their life. They want these experiences and situations and circumstances to become building blocks of growth in their life.
Instead of a pill, of course. I mean, that's just, obviously a Band-Aid on these things, but to actually change, your mindset, your brain chemistry, if you will, naturally. I mean, it's just, it's night and day, obviously, I would imagine.
Anything to do with anything of any value, whether we're reading about, Martin Luther King or Steve Jobs, it doesn't matter. Everybody has to enter the suck fest and be committed to see it through the other side. We just love reading these stories and these watch this video and your life will change tomorrow. Every story is the same. A guy had to overcome an obstacle and then he learned about himself and now he's great. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately the function, the nature of this show. Everything combat because life is a fight. Everybody has a fight we're dealing with to get, hopefully to the next level or like you said, out the other side. But again, I think so many people, they're so adverse to adversity, they just want to wave the white flag at the sign of any challenge.
See, I actually have to disagree because for like 5 years in a row, the number one growing business in North America was obstacle course racing. Okay? You get your friends, you run like 3 miles, roll around the dirt, they electrocute you, you pay them to do this. You get a medal that's like $3 made in China or whatever. And now you go back to the office that Monday morning and everyone's like, now you're the hero of the office.
Yeah.
Well, back when I was in what they call the mud bog. This guy, right? And the thing is, we can't help it. Why do you think the show Naked Afraid is so big?
Yeah.
Because people watch it. Well, okay, people just watch it and say, honey, it's on. And then they sit there and they're like, huh, well, I would have got that stick over there.
Yeah.
And made an umbrella. All right? And so we are so geared to realize that struggle gives everything in life value, but when our opportunity comes, most people don't take it. They run away. They go back to watching their shows, and then they wonder why their life sucks.
Well,
don't talk about it. Be about it. It's hard for folks to be about it. They can talk all day. It's just a matter of putting those words into action, without a doubt. I have to ask you, going on. I mean, you have obviously such a large team with what you guys work with out there. Tell me a little bit about Team Skeleton. I think Randy Couture, former Hall of Famer, former champion Pat, is on Team Skeleton. Tell me a little bit about Team Skeleton, sir. Yeah,
Mark Leano. He started Skeleton Optics, which has been great. Mark's been sponsoring me since he started up, and he's really, a matter of fact, he's here at SHOT Show, and he's a guy that really cares about vets. He himself is a veteran, and he's about bringing guys together, supporting like veteran initiatives, and building a team of people that live a really unique life, and trying to showcase them. And then obviously, you can't showcase anything if you can't see, so that's why he makes glasses.
Well, that Skeleton Optics, as you said, is a vet-owned small business. Actually, received a vet-owned small business certification from the Department of VA.
Yep. Yeah, Mark and Lori are just wonderful people, and he's got all kinds of team guys, military guys, UFC fighters. I know, he's got hunters, climbers, and he's building a really unique community of people, around a product that, one, is supports a lifestyle that so many live, and two, like, gives back to the veteran community in a really unique way.
Without a doubt. Shout out to Randy.
Randy is a good man, and so I'm glad you've got him involved. And so I wanted to ask you what probably strikes me the most about this is the impact you have on the veterans, and the moment that they have to walk away from that ranch and those horses has to be very emotional for those guys.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's easy we provide tools, and they have to use those tools when they leave. It's easy to be in a place where you're surrounded by people. And listen, I don't even know how many guys in the program I have to talk off the ledge that try to quit. Oh, my God. The toughest guys, they try to quit all the time. And ultimately, they're not quitting on me. They're quitting on themselves. But when they start to gain these tools, all of a sudden you can throw anything at them, and they just overcome it. And they just start facing it. Well, our goal is to continue that on, and that's why we have a phase 3 that they go to, so it's like an internship. And they got to take those tools, and they got to apply them in real life. Because this is real life, not fake life. And so fake life is like, you go to there's a lot of, I call it vacation for veterans, whatever, I'm not knocking it, but, they take these guys, they catch a little trout, and they spend 3 days, they get a jacket, and they get a fishing pole, and they go home, and they kill themselves. Because they haven't been given any tools. They've been given a momentary reprieve from real life into fake life. And so we really provide them tools, and that's part of our leadership program that they go through, which really is all about them. It's based on the philosophies of Marcus Aurelius and stuff from myself and I got a vet that works for us, Chief Operating Officer. He was a major in the Marine Corps, a really good friend of mine, Rick Franco, and he, him and I take our life lessons and put them all together into very simple tools. For instance, there's only 2 boxes in life. There's the yes box and the no box. And anybody that tells you that it's any different, as far as I'm concerned, is lying. And really, it's always yes or no. Either I accept this or I don't accept it. That's it. Either I accept being 350-pound blob or I don't. That's it. like when I was doing the TED thing, they're like, well, I was going to say all this stuff about obesity, and he's like, well, it's genetics, and I was like, that's actually not true.
Yeah.
I said, if you ate carrots and walked from New York City to Los Angeles, would you lose the weight? She's like, well, yeah. I was like, okay, so you can overcome your genetics.
Right.
She's like, well, that's extreme. I'm like, life's extreme.
Yeah.
You want extreme results, and be extreme. I had a guy that was like, well, I don't know if I can come. I got my car and this and that. I said, I'm going to tell you, do you want to change your life? He's like, yes. I said, then I'm going to buy you a bus ticket. And I said, leave everything in your apartment. He's like everything? I was like, yep, just leave. I was like, you're going to get kicked out anyway. He said, what about my car? I said, leave it. It's a piece of junk. He's like, what? And I was like, do you want to change your life? He's like, yeah. I said, then get on this bus right now.
Wow.
He packed up everything, left all his stuff, came through, and that guy has a fantastic life today.
The moment of decision, ladies and gentlemen, your life can be transformed. I had a question. Actually, it's a Facebook question. How long does the program last? An individual, when they, from beginning to end, how long do they stay in the program?
So the program's 40 days long, 40 days and 40 nights, and then
that sounds familiar.
Hey, that's real.
Yeah.
And so, and then there's a follow-on internship afterwards that we provide guys. So that's 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
So it's like 9 weeks total from start to finish.
Well, you mentioned Marcus Aurelius, and I'm assuming you're talking about the book Awakenings by Marcus Aurelius, some of his writings. If it's not the same one, then I'll shut my mouth. But Marcus Aurelius' Awakenings is absolutely some great messages and insight about, humans overcoming, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, well, he said, choose not to be harmed and you haven't been harmed. Choose to be harmed and you've been harmed.
Yeah.
That's about sums up life right there. And, I always use the example of, it's not a religious program or anything like that, but I always use the example, like one of the greatest public displays of personal torture and humiliation was against Jesus, right? Like, so they tortured the guy, ripped him apart, recorded across Grecian, Thessalon, all these different societies recorded it. And ultimately, he gave the example that life is really hard. And life sucks, and you have to suffer, and you have to endure. But the reality of how he was able to overcome all those challenges was through purpose. And purpose allowed him to overcome his external circumstances. Well, people are like, how do you find purpose? That sounds really nebulous. Purpose is found through a process. Like the very worst thing that you're facing right now could actually be your greatest opportunity.
Without a doubt.
That is so true. And it's like your fellow former Navy SEAL David Goggins says, he deliberately does something that sucks every day to prepare himself for that day when he gets a phone call that his mother has passed away. And this is a guy who was obese and decided that he was going to become a Navy SEAL, became a Navy SEAL, now has gone on to run numerous ultras, back-to-back ultras, like 8 or 10 of them weekend after weekend. The guy's an amazing runner. And it's that mindset where you deliberately set out to torture yourself to make yourself stronger. Now, I can give you an example of myself only in jest because I set out to run the Leadville 100 about 3 years ago, and I definitely tortured myself. I fell at mile 8. I fell down a mountain, and then they kicked me out at mile 24 because I looked like pardon the expression, a horse that was ready for the glue factory. But I was limping so bad. But I'm going back this year because I want to torture myself again and make myself stronger. And will I succeed? I don't know. But I tell you what, I'm going to give it a shot. And I've never considered myself a runner, but I've made it 75 miles before. And that's what it's all about, man. It's just setting out to do things you didn't think you could do.
Without struggle, there is no progress.
No, absolutely not. There's no you can't, there was a study that Harvard did about how our mind works, right? That we have the ability to think greater than we feel. And so they took a group of people and they had them do bicep curls for like 10 weeks, and they studied them. Then they had the other group that just sat there and meditated for 10 weeks for 30 minutes a day about the bicep exercise. And the bicep group averaged 13.5% of the people that never lifted a weight. And we have that ability to overcome obstacles in the way that we think.
Yeah.
What Dave is doing, I mean, like, he's out there. Obviously, he's inspirational, like so many people. I don't think that Navy SEALs are anybody particular special. I think they got put in that situation. It's a series of yes or no's. Do you accept stripping down naked and rolling around in the dirt for a week without eating, or like, you know, just being tortured and accosted? And they give it to you every day. You're like, do you accept this or do you not accept this? And one example is in BUD/S, where they lined us up and we were like, okay, a 2-mile run for time. They're like, all right, pays to be a winner. You get standing nap. You run down 2 miles. They're like, you guys are all losers. Like, nobody tried their hardest. I'm like, man, that's like the best I've ever ran. They're like, all right, line it up again. Like, you go 2 more miles. You run back another 2 miles. You're like, stop. Like, pays to be a winner. Like, you guys are losers. You don't care about America. Like, you're like, what? You're like, all right, another 2-mile run. You're like, okay. All right. So, like, another 2-mile run. This continued on, like, into the wee hours of the morning, where it's like, I don't even know, we had run maybe like 30 miles or something, and it got to the point where I was like, people were like, they're like, we will continue this for the next week, for the rest of like Hell Week, and everybody was like looking at them, and like 10 dudes just quit.
Wow.
And then they just walked away, and I was looking at them, I was like, man, those guys are geniuses. And they walk over there and they quit, and then they're like, okay, we're done with this exercise now. On to the next thing. And it was amazing because all that I did was just in that decision, in that horrible situation, was just make the decision: either I accept this or I don't accept it. Because that's what life throws at us. We cannot change situations and circumstances, and unfortunately, we allow life happen to us. Just listen to people talk. Just go to a go to a Starbucks. I mean, I can't even take it. I mean, there was a guy behind me eating lunch the other day. I was at a business lunch meeting, and he's a vet. He's behind me as these 2 goobers sitting there, like, in a chair, and they're, like, taking him to lunch, and he's, like, giving him the whole vet sob story. He's like, yeah, man, you know, VA, and my back, like, man. He's like, oh, I mean, you buying the beers? Like, I'll do another one. And, like, they're sitting there. He's giving this sob story. Basically, he sounded like the military stuffed him out of his house, like, with a tube, and, like, started just accosting him, gave him nothing. And I'm like, I always tell guys, I'm like, listen, if you didn't realize when you joined the military, okay, you had to take a test, you had to lose weight, you had to draw pictures, you know, little guys with guns and circle yes or no. You had to do all this stuff to get into the unit, go through boot camp, do all these things. If you didn't realize that there was a chance that you might go to war,
right,
like, watch out for buttons that look like candy, because you probably will eat one.
You know what? Hearing you say, like, you know, and it's true, man. Life is just a series of yes or no's, and what came up in my mind just for weird, but the series Band of Brothers. You guys seen that, Pat? You guys, Jay?
Of course.
So the first episode, Currahee, where they were just like dreading Currahee. Everyone was puking, but as they kept going, it's like, you know what? We just ran Curry. You know, Sobel, I think, was his name. The guy, David Schwimmer, was the head guy.
Right.
And so he just comes up one day, and they're just running it by themselves, running it on their own. You know what I mean? They flipped the switch. You know what I mean? It turned into, you know, this sucks to, like, you know what? We own this type thing. You know, I'm not gonna be defined by.
Becomes the norm. Becomes the norm.
Exactly.
Tough becomes the norm, and you accept it, and you just do it.
Yeah.
It's like joining Scientology, you know? Couple things work out good, you kind of accept it, and the next thing you know, you're like, you know, you're worshiping like a demon god from another planet. You're like, oh.
Well, or you're making Tom Cruise money, brother.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's crazy. Now, I want to bring this up. I did not know this about you until you had mentioned it, but you had done some boxing in your day.
Yeah, I did some boxing. I grew up outside of Catskill, New York, and so I learned to box at Catskill Village Boxing Gym, and that was the same place where Mike Tyson obviously learned to box underneath Customato and, you know,
right,
his training crew. And yeah, I boxed in the amateurs, kind of on and off, and you know, I just didn't have any support as a kid. I used to ride my bike down there all the time, and you know, you know, my parents, we didn't have a lot of money, and so we lived in a very, very rural area in upstate New York outside Catskill. And we lived in the same bedroom for the first couple of years that we've been owned the house, my whole family. And, you know, it was a really, really, like, tough time, which I look at, like, boxing is like a lot of down and outers, like, get into boxing.
Right, yeah, you're right.
I wasn't that kid, but I like to fight, and I come from a long line of, like, kind of like tough guys or whatever. And I started boxing, and then I picked it back up when I was going through the 18 Delta course in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I picked up like 3 amateur fights, won them all by knockout, and I fought in the North Carolina State Prison Circuit as an active duty military guy.
Nice.
I fought like a fight against like this dude, man. He was just like really scary. And I remember I was like in the maximum security prison, like warming up, and I'm just looking at this guy hit the bag. I was like, man, I'm the next meat bag he's gonna and we ended up getting a draw. And
Nice.
yeah, so I was like, it was really good. I mean, it was a great bout, and Ray Mercer was there.
Merciless.
Merciless Ray Mercer was there, former heavyweight champion of the world. I used to hang out with him all the time. We used to roll around North Carolina, and I was like active duty. I had like a wife at home with a kid, and he would pick me up and he'd take me to this bar, and he'd be like, "Yo," he'd try to talk to me about staying away from crack and stuff. I was like, "Dude, I'm not doing crack, man. I'm like a team guy. Like, I'm not gonna do that." He was always telling me, "Oh, he's trying to like give me like life advice," and I was just like, "He's like, yo, you gotta stay away from them hoes, son." And, I got like a newborn at the house. I'm good. And so anyway, I was active duty, so I started sparring with Ray on Saturdays. And he was like getting back in shape. I think at the time he was going to like do some MMA or whatever. And who was the guy he knocked out?
Tim Sylvia, baby.
Sylvia.
He crushed him. Well, let me tell you, I got a good shot of me punching Ray, but it's so deceiving because it looks like I'm just laying one in, and he's kind of he slipped that punch and hit me so hard. It's the only time in boxing I ever had to take a knee.
I'm surprised he didn't catch an attempt.
I went Queer Street. I didn't even know where I was. I was on the ground like, yeah. He's like, you got to keep your chin down, big white, he used to call me. I was like, oh my God.
I'm surprised he didn't. I'm surprised he didn't catch an attempted murder beef for what he did to Tommy Morrison back in the day.
That was brutal.
Tommy was my guy too.
Let me tell you, Tommy. Yeah, but you know, I was a big Tommy Morrison guy too. I don't know if you watched that 30 by 30 on his.
Yes, heartbreaking, dude. Oh my God.
Yeah.
How far they can fall.
There's no balance. Like, you know, guys get money and like,
Yeah.
They don't have any of the tools to put their lives together, and unfortunately, they just get.
That was Mike Tyson was just on Joe Rogan. He's like, dude, you just can't imagine 20 years old becoming the first heavyweight champion. Like, no one's ready for that. Like, I mean, granted, Mike had some issues before that, but that certainly didn't help.
Yeah, Mike had some issues. For sure.
He was good. He was good with pigeons before that, though.
He was.
Yeah, but do you remember hear the story about the guy that killed the pigeon? That's the first time he was ever violent.
Yep.
Pushed him over the edge. You know, somebody snapped his pigeon or something like that.
Ripped his head off.
And I think a lot of these great guys, I mean, I'm so excited to see the pro boxing get reignited. You know, everyone's getting excited about it because finally, you know, Vladimir got out of there, and he was about as fun to watch.
After 25 years, that was insane.
He just sticks that long arm out there, and then, like, you know, just it's just like a broomstick. It just like follows you around with it. But you know, boxing's getting exciting again, and I still work out, and we used to have smokers in the military, and we were getting ready for deployment. Everybody was having all kinds of beef, and my chief Jim is like, "Hey, I'll tell you what, everybody write on the board 1 5-minute round boxing. Whoever they want to go, officers, enlisted, doesn't matter."
Oh, my goodness.
So I just kind of sat back and seeing all the names come up on the board, guys looking at each other, and there were some brutal knockouts. And
I can only imagine.
he ended up getting in trouble because a couple guys got their noses broke so they couldn't dive or whatever. And I was thinking, like, I don't really have beef with anybody because whatever. And I was, like, sitting back, and one of the guys gets up and writes my name down.
Oh, boy.
Like, cool. So he writes my
Cool.
name down. I show up there. I got, like, my trunks with my name on it. I got my boots on. I haven't even worn these things in, like, years. I got the old Tupperware gloves. I put those on. They got headgear on. I was like, no thanks. I throw my mouthpiece in. I look at him. He looks at me. He's like, hey, man, listen. I don't have a problem with you. I was like, dude, guys. And
you do now.
I mean, I knocked him out with such a left hook. I let him hit me for about 10 seconds, and I just flattened him, unconscious. And I love boxing to this day. I stay in shape and box all the time. I love watching the old fights. You know, I love watching Hagler. I love watching old Tyson fights, Fink's fights. You know, there's so so much like back in the day, you know, that's all there was on TV. And then of course when the UFC bout started coming on, and that's when I first learned about you guys, you know, I was like, it was like, you know, the 350-pound dude versus the guy that's trained in like African kung fu or something.
Right. Right. We just had George Foreman on, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Incredible
Now,
conversation.
you know, and I've got to bring up, Micah, for you, most Navy SEALs are not big guys. I mean, how big were you when you were going through BUD/S?
Well, I was probably like 205, 210, 6'4".
Okay, so you were pretty slender at the time, because a lot of guys. One of my friends that I went to high school with, who was a All-American wrestler for the University of Illinois, he was a heavyweight, and he was a big guy. He's probably 235, 240. Went through and actually became a SEAL, got on one of the teams. But it's not normal for big guys to make it through that process.
No, and you stick out. And, like, the thing is, you got, like, kind of a noodle neck when you're tall, so you like, carry those boats, you know, it's like giraffe neck, you know. The little short guys, they're all shrugged up. But, no, I went, listen, I was on the telephone pole in Queens, New York, when the first plane hit the World Trade Center on 9/11. And I really had no desire to, like, I never, like, played soldier or anything like that. I didn't grow up like that. And, it changed my life. You know, I pulled bodies out of, you know, rubble, and it really, really had a profound effect on me. Yeah. And I ended up joining up. I didn't even know what the Navy SEALs were. I had no idea. I went down and tried to join the Army, and I was in the hallway. All these dudes are lined up out there, and everyone's trying to join the fight and stand up for America at the time, back when people liked America. And I was there, and a Navy guy came out. He was like the dorkiest looking dude. He came out. He's like, "Hey man," he's just in the hall, just poaching people. And he's like, "What do you do?" I was like, "I'm going to join the Army." He's like, "Why do you want to do that?" And I was like, "You know, be an Army Ranger." He's like, "Army Ranger?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Let me show you a video." He brought me in there. He puts in his like VHS, and it's like, you know, the guy's like, "Man, those dudes are bad dudes." He's like, "You want to try out for that?" I was like, "Sure." I had no idea, like, nobody made it. He was like, "You have to take, like, a job in case you don't make it." I was like, "What do you mean don't make it?" He's like, "Well, you got to go through, like, a course. It's challenging, but, you know, you can get through it." "Can you swim?" I was like, "Kind of." And
oh, jeez.
that was, like, yeah, that was how I joined up. I mean, I had no idea, and then I started, like, getting all these books, and I was like, I mean, I showed up there with high school. There was college guys that were, like, jacked, like muscles everywhere. I was like really intimidated. I graduated 11 guys, original guys, out of my class.
Out of how many?
Yeah. Out of how many?
157. So.
Yeah, man. Was it a winter class?
Winter class, yeah, February class.
So how cold's the water at that time? Like 54 degrees or something?
Yeah, it's in the 50s. Yeah, very cold.
So brutal. So brutal.
It was so.
I surfed in that water.
I would quit right now. I just quit. If they did that to me, I'd be like, I quit.
I surfed in that water one time. I'll never go back.
Oh man, it was so brutal. We had one day we were doing the surf passage in the little boat, and we had some kids that had never even seen the ocean. And the waves are like 10, 12 footers booming in. We're all lined up on the beach, and they're like, "All right, don your boat." The kid who had never seen the ocean before looks at it like, "This ain't for me." And I'll never forget him saying that. He just turns around, walks back, and just rings the bell.
So, Micah, this is unfortunately the end of our hour here. We got about a minute left. I want you to be able to tell our listeners, look, where they can go to donate, volunteer, learn more about Heroes and Horses and about the project that you're doing, because it's incredible, and I want everybody to learn about it.
Yeah, 100%. Listen, Pat, I really appreciate the opportunity. Heroesandhorses.org. You can follow us on the Instagram at Heroes and Horses, HEROES. And, you know, get involved. There's tons of volunteer opportunities. There's opportunities to come out and cowboy and do ranch work, support and cooking, all kinds of things. And then also, like, spread the word. You know, check out the 500 Mile Project. We did a film called 180 Out with Yeti, which is definitely worth checking out. So, yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Heroesandhorses.org. If you know a vet, have them apply. And let's start going after the real problem and get to the root and make changes.
I love what you're doing, buddy. Micah Fink, thank you so much for being on with us. This has been Everything Combat, because life is a fight, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Yo Sports Center.
I'm John Ryder. The Rockets have finally dealt Carmelo Anthony, sending the 10-time All-Star to the Bulls, who will likely either trade or waive